Hello and welcome to Sydney Opera House. Here we are on the stage of the Playhouse at the Opera House. My name's James Evans and I'm the director of this production of Romeo and Juliet. First of all, let me acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this great opera house sits, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respect to elders past and present. Well, I'm very pleased today to be joined by the entire cast of Romeo and Juliet. So I wonder if you guys can introduce yourselves, go around and tell us which characters you play.
Sure. Hi, my name's Cameron. I'm playing Lord Capulet and also the Friar.
Hi, I'm Alice and I play Benvolio.
Hi, I'm Jake. I play Tybalt in Paris.
Hi, I'm Anna and I'm playing the nurse and the prince.
Hello, I'm Amy and I play Juliet and the chorus.
Hi, I'm Shiv. I play Mercutio and Lord Montague.
Hi, I'm Lucy and I play Lady Capulet.
And I am Sam and I play Romeo.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Now, it's over to you. You may have a question for the actors or for me. Use the hashtag BellQA on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Ask us a question about the characters, about the show, about Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, acting, whatever you like. We're waiting here for your questions. Now, I'm going to throw to Caitlin and Kate over there on the Bell Shakespeare question desk, and I wonder if you guys have a question for us already.
We do indeed. So to start us off, Maddie and Bianca from Penrith would like to know what was the part of the rehearsal process that was your favourite, and what was it like?
What was the part of rehearsal process that was your favourite? Who wants to answer that one? Jake, would you like to answer that one?
So for me personally, my favourite part of the rehearsal process was working with the fight choreo. I play Tybalt, who kind of drives a lot of the violence throughout the play and kind of majority of the fights I'm involved in. So I kind of to work with Scott Witt, our fight choreo guy, who's excellent. We kind of worked through the opening brawl scenes, the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt, Romeo and Tybalt, and Paris and Romeo. To kind of do that day in, day out was really quite exciting for me. I quite like a physical challenge, and that kind of presented like an enjoyable way to pursue it, I guess. But also kind of working day in, day out with these guys. It's nice to come together as the group of eight actors. We've all been out on the road in our groups of four, touring the country, to kind of come back and work with four new fresh faces again, and four faces that I'm very familiar with was great as well.
Yeah, so the players have been on the road, performing in schools all over the country, and this is their opportunity to do a full-scale play here with a cast of 8. So it's great to have been through that rehearsal process with you guys. It's been lots and lots of fun for me as well. Amy, what was your favourite part of the rehearsal process?
Jake stole mine, but oh goodness. Oh, okay. The set. The set at first, because it came in before we did, this baby. So we came into the rehearsal room and there was this epic staircase, and it was kind of like a playground for us. So they basically said, every day have a play on it, climb up the stairs, climb down the stairs, climb up the ladders, do everything that you might do in the play. And I think Scott Witt devised for us some little routines, some little choreography that we could practice every day in order to familiarise ourselves with the set. But yeah, just having the opportunity to kind of explore the possibilities of this mammoth set was awesome, because we got such free rein to do whatever we wanted on it. And yeah, it was like a fun playground.
Yeah, it's a great blank canvas, isn't it, in order to create a play. Now, Caitlin or Kate, do you have another question for us?
Yes, well, Amy's answer just leads into the next question, which is from Lydia on Twitter, and that is, who had the idea to use the stage with many levels?
Sorry, who had the idea to...
Who had the idea to make the stage have all these different levels?
All these different levels. That is a great question. Now, as a director, you work with a designer as well to create the set and the costume design for the show. So I was very fortunate to work with a very experienced set and costume designer called Renee Mulder. And I said to Renee, look, I just want there to be some kind of level so that Romeo and Juliet in the balcony scene can't reach each other. They have to reach each other with words and language instead of actually being able to touch each other. And also, I want the set to be really kind of have an atmosphere of oppression, be quite oppressive and give us a very hot and oppressive atmosphere. And so Renee one day said to me, well, how about just a huge, big bunch of stairs? I said, okay, well, let's draw it and make a model and see if it works. And the good thing about this stage is that different scenes can unfold in different parts of the stage, and we can isolate that with lighting so that we don't have to have big set changes and big gaps between the scenes. And so you'll notice if you've seen the show or if you're coming along that just as one scene is finishing, the other one is starting somewhere else in the stage, so that it's a very, very fast, very quick, very fast-moving show. Remember that our show's only 90 minutes long, and the actual script of Romeo and Juliet is, if you do the whole thing, it's about 3 hours. So we really had to find a way, as well as cutting the script, to make sure that it's moving very quickly, and this stage helped us to do that. Caitlin?
Now, the next question comes from Sarah, who's a homeschooler in Blacktown. And she would like to know, why did you choose to use things like drills, golf clubs, and old bits of metal for weapons instead of using fake swords or sticks?
Good question. Now, who wants to answer that one? Why are we using... Okay, Cameron, go ahead.
So I think part of the world that we're creating is not quite post-apocalyptic, but it's very urban. And so there's this idea that the street kids who are part of the families, they just use whatever is around. So if we brought out medieval swords or anything like that, it would probably look a little bit silly. So yeah, there was this great inventiveness that Renee and James sort of had, that starting idea that we could then play with, that we'd have all these things lying around and you just grab whatever's around you and attack your closest opponent with it. And as you'd seen the show, some of the weapons look quite deadly. They're very heavy and sort of scary looking, and you can use them in a lot of different ways as well. So I think
well, we've got some here. Shall we show some? Now, one of the other elements of this set, by the way, is all these trap doors that we have. So everything that the actors need comes out of these trap doors, these holes in the ground. So Alice, you want to lift that one up? There's a trap door down there, and there's nothing in there at the moment. And there's another one here. Sam, can you pull out some weapons for us there?
Sure thing.
Yeah. So we've got a very vicious-looking spike there. It's like a like a tent spike. We've got a nasty-looking aluminium pole that Mercutio uses to great effect. We've got
personal favourite.
power drill for Tybalt to get stuck into one of the Montagues. What do we got here? We got that's your chain, isn't it? Yeah. That's quite heavy actually. I didn't realise it was so heavy. Okay. And, crowbar, yep.
This one. It's another good one.
Crazy machete, crowbar. So lots of awesome weapons. Actually, we should probably put them back in because we might want to use the stage in a minute. So let's pop them back. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Oh, now I should show you this trapdoor down here as well. This is a special trapdoor, and when in the scenes where the Friar turns up, Friar, do you want to open the trapdoor for us there? He pops this trapdoor, and out comes a lovely little lush little garden down here with all of the Friar's various potions and spells and all the things that he has in there, as well as his gardening implements, his secateurs, and have you got your secateurs there, Friar? Yeah. There you go. It can be used as a weapon as well. So really the objects that we use as weapons are found on the streets or found in households, and we use the actual elements of the set in order to help tell the story. Okay, Caitlin or Kate, you got another question for us? Kate?
Yes. So I have a question from Taylor at Yarram Secondary College, and this is for everyone. How long did it take you to get a decent grasp of the Shakespearean language?
Shakespearean language, very good question. Who wants to field that one?
I'll start.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when you start working on a Shakespeare play, a lot of your preparation goes into reading the script, breaking down the script, making sure you know what you're saying in each scene, because the language can be very unusual and not the way that we speak today, obviously. So we got our scripts a little bit ahead of time, and so we had a few weeks or maybe even a couple of months, I think, to learn our parts and also figure out exactly what it is that we're saying and breaking it down into different thoughts. So I guess learning the lines is the first thing. Yeah.
So one of the important things to realise is that some kids say to me, oh, but that's how they used to speak in the olden days. But actually it's not. This is poetry. This is heightened language. And no one, even in Shakespeare's time, spoke in this kind of poetic language on a day-to-day basis. So even for Shakespeare's own audience, this was a heightened form, and it was meant to be heightened. And so for us today, to really delve into the detail of that language is very rewarding for an actor. Because the thoughts are so big that we have to rise to fill the ideas and the thoughts of each character, and the relationships and the stakes are so high that actors really enjoy sinking their teeth into this language and into the characters. Caitlin?
So Joel from Penrith Christian School would like to know, what is it like to play such a well-known role but put your own spin on it?
What is it like to play such a well-known role? Well, Amy, perhaps you should take that one. Juliet.
All right, I may. Yeah, so I played Juliet, and it's quite daunting when you first find out that you have to play Juliet, because she is possibly the most well-known theatrical character of all time. So I was kind of like, because there's so many preconceptions that go along with that. And I think that my task that I set myself was to try and just abandon all of anything that I know about Juliet from various other sources, or what I've heard of people's interpretations of Juliet. My first task was to look at the text and just be like, okay, what is Shakespeare telling me about this girl? And that kind of, and then from there I was able to look at different interpretations and be like, oh, this is an interesting take. And I think I needed to remove that pressure from myself before I could kind of attack the role. And then I think I probably, you put kind of your own spin on it, because I can never be anyone other than who I am when I'm on stage. You know, you're looking at Juliet, but you're also looking at me, Amy. So there's no getting around that. And therefore, it's going to be different to any other interpretations you've ever seen. So, yeah.
Thanks,
I
Amy.
don't remember the question.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy. Remember, if you want to join the conversation, #BellQA on Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. Ask us a question about Romeo and Juliet, about acting, about Shakespeare, about our production. We're happy to answer your questions live from the Opera House. Caitlin or Kate?
Yes, so Kaylin has a question for Alice. What was it like to play a male character and turn it into a female character?
Yes. So what is it like to play, to get a male character and turn into a female character? It's interesting, to say the least. It's at first it's a bit challenging, I guess, because once you assume a character's a specific gender, with it comes other assumptions as well. I had to kind of let go, kind of similar to what Amy was just saying, let go of kind of some preconceived ideas about what the character should be. And once it was clear that Benvolio in our world was female, then exploring how a female character who was quite comfortable with all these guys and also can fight, how does she fit into a world that is still quite male dominated? Because she isn't. I found it interesting, her relationship with Romeo, for example, changes. That she's still the confidant and his cousin, but now there's, there's a different kind of relationship between them. She can bring a bit more of the feminine kind of caring, maybe slightly even motherly, because I always thought that Benvolio is slightly older than Romeo. Well, that's my interpretation anyway. And also Benvolio's relationship with Mercutio changes as well. They're not related, and what happens when these two people are so close to each other. So it brings up other kind of opportunities and possibilities, and it was really fun exploring that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Alice. Okay, Caitlin?
All right, so we have one from Angela, who says that performing in front of students must be quite different to an adult audience, because kids give a very honest reaction, especially to the love and the violence scenes. And she wants to know how you guys stay focused through those scenes.
Good question. Anna, I'm going to pass this one on to you. How do you stay focused during those scenes when there's reactions rolling in off the audience?
Well, I actually really love the reactions because I think back in Shakespeare's time, the audience was very responsive, and these days in adult theatre, you know, with politeness and sort of being a bit more used to the theatre, often people that come to the theatre as adults go to the theatre a lot, and they sort of know the standard etiquette and that sort of thing. And although that's good too, I suppose, it's nice to have students that aren't used to coming to the theatre that can just be themselves and respond the way that they want to respond. So part of it is great actually, and makes you realise that the students are engaged and really listening. So that in itself doesn't make me lose focus if people are responding. But sometimes if things get really rowdy, or if people call things out or that sort of thing, yeah, it can be difficult to keep focus. And I guess the main thing that I try and do is focus on the other character in the scene and listen to what that person is saying and really try to tell the story as clearly as possible without, I suppose, yeah, without breaking that fourth wall or allowing it to damage the way that you're used to presenting that character.
Yeah, that can be tricky, can't it? And that fourth wall is going to be important for certain parts of the play. And then, of course, Shakespeare breaks it for you by throwing in these soliloquies where the character turns directly to the audience and shares a very intimate detail of their thoughts. And Juliet has a number of very famous soliloquies in this play, and some other characters have some asides to the audience as well. So I think Shakespeare intended for the audience to be probably part of the performance and to be responding and to be connected with the performers in that way. But then at other moments, you have to really focus on the other character and make sure that you are both in the scene together, don't you? Which can be tricky, but wonderful as well. Kate, do you have a question for us?
I do. This is from homeschool student Layla. She says, what are the hardest scenes emotionally to perform and why?
Emotional scenes. Now, Lucy, as Lady Capulet, you have a number of emotional moments, emotional scenes. What is? How do you find that emotion, and what's difficult about it?
Okay, so finding emotion in an emotional scene. I think the biggest trick for playing an emotional scene is to not worry about finding the emotion. It sounds funny, but if you're focusing more on what you want, what you're trying to achieve in that moment and all of your given circumstances, you'll probably find that the emotion just comes. I think people worry a lot about finding tears, particularly if you're working towards tears or that sort of really high stakes emotion. And you won't get there if you're thinking about getting there, if that makes sense. So if I'm doing an emotional scene, for example, when Lady Capulet and Capulet find out that Tybalt has been killed, and they're both very upset, and Lady Capulet's sort of calling on the prince to give them justice, really, and kill one of the Montagues, I'm not thinking about how upset I am. I'm thinking about what I want and what's happened and how much that means to me. And then I think performing emotional scenes as well, it's important to be as physically relaxed as you can. So doing warm-ups and all the things that we do as actors in terms of technique every day helps. It just helps you to kind of relax and I guess just be open and vulnerable and to sort of tap into those emotions. But then there'll be some days where you do a scene where you normally cry and you'll come off stage completely dry-eyed and think, how did that happen? And then the next second, in a seemingly innocent scene, you'll feel the emotion well up. So I guess just being open to emotion happening organically and naturally and focusing on the scene is my secret.
Thanks, Lucy. That's great. Now, Sam, when you have a particularly emotional moment towards the end, when you find out that Juliet's dead, she's not actually dead, spoiler alert, she's not actually dead, but your cousin tells you that she is.
Yes.
And now, do you go all method at that point? Are you having this emotional recall going on, or are you just kind of just thinking about what's on Foxtel that night, and you're going to go home and watch TV? What's going on in your head?
Well, I'm certainly not thinking about Foxtel. Do I go all method? Not really. I'm more of a, I try to just use the imaginary circumstances of the play. So when I look down and see Amy down there and, you know, I'm breathing and kind of like just imagining that that's actually happening to me. Yeah, that's kind of all I do. I don't sort of go backstage and like think about my dead dog or anything like that. I just kind of use the scene, use what's happening, use my breath. Breathing really helps. Yeah, that's how I do it.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Awesome. Caitlin, do you have another question for us?
Yeah. So Claudia from St Mary's and St Mina's College was wondering why Juliet was portrayed as so adolescent and almost immature, even though she's making decisions that require a high level of maturity.
Juliet, talk to us about your character in 30 seconds.
I
Go.
love it. I think that's a great question. I think that something that one might forget is that she is immature. She's 13, so she, by definition, lacks maturity. And I think if it weren't for that immaturity, she wouldn't be capable of making the decisions that she makes in the play, which I think are such epic, life-changing decisions, which most 13-year-olds don't necessarily face. So I think that it's because she doesn't have that perspective and that rationale of someone who's had more life experience. As a result, she is able to follow her impulses and make those rash decisions. Because, the things that she does in the play are, if she really sat down and thought about the potential consequences, she might go, this might not end well. But she doesn't do that because she's overcome with this feeling, with this love and this passion and this lust. And as far as she's concerned, there's no compromise, there's no alternative. She has to do it. And I think I would attribute that to her age.
Yeah, Juliet, I mean, this is really Juliet's play, isn't it? Her journey is the most detailed one through this play, and you really get a sense of all the men in her life and the way that they try and control her, the way that they try and tell her what to do, everyone from her dad to Paris to the Friar, even Romeo maybe. And Juliet's coming of age is really at the heart of this story. And I think it's fascinating to watch Juliet as a very young and immature character, which is the way you're playing it in the beginning, then having to grow up very quickly, have that awakening, and make some decisions that ultimately lead to a horrible conclusion. So I think it's a fascinating character, and I love the journey that you take us on through that play. Kate, do you have a question for us now?
Yes. So Michael from Wagga would like to know, well, there's a lot of fighting in this play. Has anything ever gone wrong? How do you prepare for the fight scenes?
A lot of fighting in this play. Now, Jake, you were telling us a bit earlier about the fights. How about, can we do a demo? Can we do a demo? Let's get some weapons out of here. Guys, we better clear the stage. And let's have a look at a fight between Tybalt and Romeo. Now, in this fight, remember that Romeo's best friend, Mercutio, has just been killed by Tybalt. And Romeo, who didn't want to fight, has now turned very angry. Tybalt's returned to the town square, wherever they are, and they're about to fight. So let's see what happens. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam and Jake. He's all right, folks. He's all right. He's okay. Now, hang on a sec, guys. I think we'll get him to just step through it a little bit slower now. Obviously, fights can go really, really quickly. But let's go again, guys, just to show some of the techniques that you use in order to avoid hurting each other and in order to be quite safe, even though it looks very, very quick and violent. Okay, so just take it really slowly this time. Okay, great. Come on back in, guys. Come on back in. Okay, so as you can see, there obviously is a mat, a big crash mat behind the set, so that when Jake, hopefully, Jake hopes every day that mat will be there when he jumps off the back of the set. And of course, we have our wonderful assistant stage manager, Gina, who works scurrying around behind the set, making sure all the props are in their right positions, making sure the crash mat's there and everything's safe. So Jake has somewhere to land when he falls off the back of that set. But also, you might have noticed a couple of things. They're constantly making eye contact with each other when they're in the midst of this fight. So they always know which move they're up to. If something goes wrong, they know to pull back and to stop. They know where those blades are flying, and their distance is set. Now, Jake, you were talking a bit about Scott Witt, our fight choreographer, earlier. Can you tell us about when the process of fight rehearsals begins and how that happens, how that works?
Yeah, great. So, as James mentioned, Scott Witt was our fight director, and from day one, we became familiar with this set. So we worked through drills, kind of just climbing up the sides of the set and kind of coming up the stairs, and then incorporating having an object in your hand and handing off an object, and kind of slowly build up from the very kind of beginnings into then some small kind of, I guess, choreographed like fight moves, and then from there you introduce weapons again, and then we kind of start feeling out what the floor plan might look like and where we need to go, and then we kind of reverse and kind of go backwards, and kind of, I guess the best way of doing it was breaking it down into, I guess, mini stories or mini beats. So you kind of start with the first beat is maybe in that particular example was Sam and I having, I guess, an argument at the beginning. We clock eyes. First beat is that, and then the second beat is him coming down towards me. I'm jumping out the way, and then in the third beat, it's him swinging the crowbar at my feet. I lift my feet up. Then the fourth beat is me slashing at him, and then from there we kind of progress up until the fall, which is the kind of end of that story, I guess. The processes we went through were kind of always making sure we have safe distance and eye contact. From that slow motion view, you could see the blades nowhere near Sam. There's a good kind of foot or two in between. We've always kind of worked on being as safe as possible and having as much distance, and kind of it's up to us as the actors to sell that there's no distance. And it's also kind of from the angles we place ourselves as well. So from an audience perspective, it looks very close, but if you saw it from the side, then there'd be a huge gap in between. So it's also kind of trying to trick your eye line into what's happening, and that's to do with pace and distance and all those things. Yeah,
great. Thank you very much for that, Jake. And also remember that the actors rehearse the fights before every single day's performance. Before the first performance every day, they go through all of the fight choreography to make sure that it's nice and safe. Okay, Caitlin, do you have a question for us?
So Dan from Macquarie Grammar School says that Mercutio's role is a bit flamboyant and risque. And is it hard to commit to the character and not to laugh?
Shiv, how about that?
Great question, Dan. I guess it's just having fun. And as long as I'm having fun up there, I don't tend to laugh at myself. I think the danger would be if I was aware that I was doing something naughty and, I started to shy away from it, that, the audience they'd find that a bit jarring, and then I'd find that a bit weird and distancing as well. So I think the important thing is just to, whatever action I'm playing or whatever intention I'm playing, is to just commit to it fully. And as long as I'm committing to it, people will buy into it, and it doesn't seem too out of the ordinary, or I don't know. Maybe people find it risque, but...
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Shiv. Thank you. Kate, do you have a question?
Yes. So the kids from Noble Park English School and also Christina on Twitter would like to know how you got involved in acting and what suggestions you have if they would like to also do so.
How you got involved in acting. Anna, how did you get involved in acting? When did it start for you?
I think it started when I was probably when I was doing performances in the living room to my family, whether they wanted them or not. But I started doing classes when I was in about year 6. And I think if you want to get into acting, it's sort of part of your blood, and you keep pursuing it. So I did classes outside of school, and then I studied drama at school. And I think just going to the theatre, watching plays, watching movies, being inquisitive, reading books, I think it's just continually having that thirst for more information. And then you may make the choice to go to drama school as well. I think it's best to just keep getting as much experience as possible.
Now, and Cam, you went to drama school. You went to VCA in Melbourne. How was that? How was that for you? And did you always want to be an actor?
I think I wanted to be an actor when I was a really little kid. Like, I loved the old Superman movies, and I wanted to be a superhero. I realised that they're not real and you can't do it. So I thought pretending would be the next best thing. And then I sort of forgot about it for a while, and then I started doing drama in high school, and I really enjoyed it. So I had a couple of years off after high school and went travelling. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and at some point I sort of realised that acting was something I really wanted to explore. And auditioning for drama school can sometimes be difficult. Often people don't get in first go. The 3 years there was like a really accelerated learning process. It was amazing. It was exhausting, and I found that a lot of what I learnt there, it's the time after the drama school training that some of the teachings have started to settle in. But yeah, it's not the only path. I mean, people get private coaching, they do short courses. Some actors just go straight to LA and start getting roles in movies. Like, there's no, there's no one way of doing it. So I think it's just about choosing what you love the most and pursuing that, and then your path might take you in a different direction, and just being open to what might open up for you.
Thanks, Cam. Remember, you can join the conversation if you've got a question for the actors. #BellQA on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook. Ask us a question. Caitlin or Kate? Caitlin, you got another question for us?
Yeah, so Ariel wants to know, what do you think makes a successful director? And as actors, what do you look for?
Thank you, Ariel. Good Shakespearean name, by the way. And don't forget, Bell Shakespeare's production of The Tempest is coming into the Playhouse very soon. So make sure you check that out here at Sydney Opera House Playhouse as well. Now, Ariel, I reckon what makes a good director is someone who is collaborative and listens to all of the artistic and creative opinions and input on the floor. As a director, I have to remember that I'm working with very creative people, and it's no point me just going, all right, you stand here, you do that, you say that, you do it like this. I want them to come into the room, the actors to come into the room with creative offers, with ideas of how their character fits into this story, because they know their character best. They've been studying that character, they love that character, and they own that character. So I want to hear from them what their ideas are, and also being open to ideas from the rest of our creative team, like our lighting designer, Nick Rayment, our composer, Nate Edmondson, and of course our designer, Renee Mulder, and our movement director, Scott Witt. So all of our creative team and actors are an important part of that process. And I think as a director, my boss, Peter Evans, once told me a very good piece of advice. He says, as a director, you don't have to necessarily have the best idea, you just need to be able to recognize the best idea. And I like to think that that's the way I work as a director in the room. Now, how about you guys as actors? Shiv, what do you reckon? What's the best way to work as an actor in the room? What do you think?
The best way to work as an actor with a director. Well, like you were saying, you got to bring in your offers. You got to have ideas to put forward, but at the same time, you can't be too precious with them. You've got to be able to, if it's not working in the grander scheme of things, if it doesn't serve the story, for example, just you got to let it go and go with something else. So I reckon a good thing to do is to come in with a couple of ideas. So you have your main offer, and then you might have a couple of extra ones that, in case your main one doesn't fly that well. And yeah, just, I guess you just listen to what the room is asking of you and what people are sort of heading towards, and just fitting into the style of what everyone else is doing. That's probably the best way in to settle and then just keep working.
Thanks, Shiv. Now, Alice, you're a very playful actor, I would say. You like to play, which is a wonderful quality for an actor to have. So how do you keep your ideas fresh every day? You're always coming in with a new idea, a new concept. How do you do that?
Well, thank you, James. I think for me, feeling safe in a space is a big thing, and also knowing that what's great about being part of a show is that everybody is there for everybody, and you don't need to be afraid of looking silly, because everybody will probably be looking silly, and to not be afraid to try new things out. And I think that I love playing, and I love seeing what other people can bring as well. It's kind of like one big game that you're all exploring, and then you find kind of these little gems together. So I think keeping, being professional, but not being too serious about it, because, you want to bring a story to an audience, eventually, and you want it to affect them, and, you want to share an experience, I guess. So for me, remembering that it's something that is to be shared with everybody. And if you're too concerned about yourself and looking perfect and being perfect, then you will just swallow that fun that can be had.
Thanks, Alice. Great. Now, Caitlin. Kate, do you have a question for us?
I do. Mark Simmons on Twitter has asked, if there is one, what would be your favourite line from the show?
Wow. Okay, let's do a quick whip round. If you have a favourite line, Jake, from the show, what is your favourite line? Alice, could you hand him up the mic? What's your favourite line from the show, mate?
My favourite line is from the character of Paris. Who's a lovely gentleman, by the way. His line is towards Juliet when they're in the Friar, Lawrence's cell, and it's, I've forgotten it now. Do not deny to him that you love me. And he's got no idea what's going on, but anyway.
Poor old Paris. How about you, Anna?
One that springs to mind is this shall determine that. And I know that sounds very basic, but there's so much consequence in the play that it's actually quite profound, where Shakespeare talks about our choices have a huge impact on other people.
Sam, how about you? What's your favourite line from the play?
I really like Romeo at the end when he's, hovering over Juliet and he's about to take the poison. He says, dear Juliet, I still will stay with thee and never from this palace of dim night depart again. And I just think that's so, it's amazing language, but it's also so definitive. He's like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to take my life now because I can't have you.
Lucy, how about you? What's your fave?
The one that's springing to mind is actually a line of Juliet's. I love it, and I absolutely love the way that Amy delivers it. I'm always listening to it, and it brings me to tears in my dressing room. Hopefully I'll get it right. I think it's in the balcony scene when she's trying to explain to Romeo how much she loves him, and she says, my bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. I just think that's so beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. That's my favourite line in the play. I was going to say that one.
I stole it.
Great. Cam, what about you?
I was going to say that one too, but second choice being one of the Friar's lines, these violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss, consume. I just think it's a beautiful way to describe the destructive nature of passion that sort of flies out of control.
Thanks, Cam. How about you, Alice? Do you have a favourite line?
Well, Lucy also took mine, but that's okay. Mine's a bit silly, but in our production, I love, ho, what noise is this? Because Cam says it so well, but also whenever you do a show, there's always just little quirks, little things that pop up that I think that I don't know, your imagination runs wild, but on all seriousness, it's an example of how this is a Shakespearean line, right? A Shakespearean text that you understand quite instantly because of the way it's delivered. Just because it's almost like a different dialect or accent. Just because it's written in a Shakespearean kind of form doesn't mean that it's still English and it's still understandable. You just got to find a way in. And as actors, making it recognised and understood instantly is part of that. Anyway,
For
that
sure.
was my line.
Thank you. Amy, favourite line?
one of my favourite lines is probably a line that Juliet says when she's trying to convince Romeo that it's not yet daylight, because at the break of day he has to escape to Mantua. So, and he's saying, it's day, I've got to go, because otherwise I'll die. And she says, yon light is not daylight, I know it I. It is some meteor that the sun exhaled to be to thee this night a torchbearer and light thee on thy way to Mantua. And I just think it's so beautiful how she creates this like elaborate fantasy, and she's trying to kind of pull him into it, and she succeeds, but then the nurse intervenes. So, yeah.
That's right. And how about you, Shiv? How about you?
I really enjoy some of the bawdier lines that Mercutio has, because it's like, the thing is, when you guys come to see the shows, like we're quite aware that some things are a bit risque or that they wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in school or whatever. So when I get a chance to deliver some of those lines, it's just fun biting into them. So one of my favorites is probably Romeo, that she were, oh that she were an open arse, and thou a popperin pear.
Thank you very much, Shiv. On that note, I think we'll go to another question from Caitlin.
Yeah, so Marilyn from Skeggs Darlinghurst has a question for James, actually. And it is, she wants to know why the performances or some of the performances were directed outwardly to the audience.
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes it's a wonderful idea to share a moment with the audience, especially in Shakespeare, because as I said, that fourth wall is quite porous in Shakespeare. In some of the scenes, the characters are quite involved with each other, but we have to remember that these plays were written to have a very deep connection with an audience. Now, in Shakespeare's time, they would have been put on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, when it was during daylight, so the audience and the actors could see each other very, very clearly, and the audience would often respond very loudly. So if an actor was speaking a soliloquy, saying something like, to be or not to be, the audience might shout back, no, don't do it, or, oh, yeah, you should. So there was constantly an interaction going on between the audience and the actor, and I think that's in the DNA of these plays, that interaction, that porous fourth wall, and the idea that the actors are constantly sharing stuff and sharing lines with the audience. But also, if you look at the architecture of a space like this, if an actor turns their back to the audience or speaks slightly upstage, their voice can be lost. So it's very good for the actor to be either speaking downstage or towards the audience to make sure that they're heard very clearly as well. So that's a simple reason too. Another question, guys?
So Emily from Strathfield wants to know, did you have a positive experience with Shakespeare at school? And what advice would you give teachers to keep it fun and understandable?
A positive experience with Shakespeare at school. It's really important, isn't it? And sometimes that doesn't happen. Now, who wants to answer that one? Who wants to take that one? Lucy, did you have a positive experience with Shakespeare?
I would say I didn't really click with Shakespeare until I was in year 10 or so. I did have great English teachers at school, but I just sort of remember us sitting around in the classroom reading. And I think it's just so crucial to get kids on their feet, get them up, get them performing it and playing with it, because Shakespeare wasn't written to be, read aloud in a classroom one at a time. It was meant to be breathed and lived and performed. And if you can, getting the kids to see some live shows is just so great. Even, film versions, that kind of thing. I didn't really click with Shakespeare personally until I was in a Shakespeare play. I did Macbeth when I was in year 10, and that's sort of when I fell in love with Shakespeare. And then my study of it in school, I think I improved because I was understanding the language, because now I was speaking it and performing it and sort of getting really emotionally involved with it. So I think the key is just keeping it as active and alive as you possibly can.
Yeah, my advice to teachers often is clear the desks for a lesson, clear them out of the way, get the kids up on their feet, speak the language out loud. This was language that was meant to be heard and spoken out loud and not read in a book. It's not a novel, remember guys? It's not a novel, this is a play. And in Shakespeare's day, when the actors got the play, they only got their lines. They had to learn their lines, and then they all came together, and the thing didn't actually live and breathe until the actors were performing a play together. So speak it out loud. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have left in our Q&A today. I want to thank all of the actors for being here and answering the questions. Alice, Cam, Jake, Anna, Amy, SHIV, Lucy and Sam. Thank you so much, you guys. And I want to thank the Australian Government Department of Education and Training, who supports us, and also Foxtel, our national schools partner. Thank you very much all, and we'll see you around the theatre. Bye.